Hello, welcome guys. Just wait for a few more people to join. From all over the world, I assume, like us, that are here. All right, I think we can begin. So, welcome everyone to our latest Talent in Tech discussion. My name is Justin Lestel and I'm the marketing manager at DevSkiller. DevSkiller is the leading technical screening platform that services customers in over 85 countries worldwide. Now, I'm very excited to welcome you to the second part of our DevOps recruitment discussion called the State of DevOps Recruitment. We've got a very exciting discussion planned for you guys today. Before we jump into it, I just got a couple of quick housekeeping things to go over. First of all, there will be a Q&A session at the end of this discussion. So if you've got any questions, please leave them in the chat box and we'll get to them towards the end. This session will also be recorded. So if you can't make it to the end of the discussion, we'll send you a recording link sometime next week so you can catch up with it then. And last but certainly not least, big shout out to Amazing Hiring who have partnered up with us for this session today. Alrighty, so now that that's out of the way, why don't I get started and introduce our panelists? So why don't we start with you, Jenna? Good to see you, good morning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in tech recruitment and DevOps in general?
Yeah, good morning. I have been doing technical recruiting for about 8 years now, focused primarily on those kind of hard to fill technical roles. I was actually looking at a webinar that's happening next month, and they listed DevOps as one of the top 5 most desired and hardest to fill roles. So was really excited that we're going to dig in and talk about that a little bit here. I think one of the things that I've always really enjoyed is working on those things that are more of a hunt, right? Like you have to find the people. It's security engineers, DevOps engineers, folks that don't necessarily put all their information out there into the world because it's just like, yes, I found them and I've got them now. So I think I really enjoy that piece of it a lot, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. It's an interesting way of looking at it for sure. Okay, Rolana, good to see you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to have you here. So I have been in recruitment for around 6 years already, and I started to work with technical roles at recruitment agency. I had a chance to work with pretty much every role out there in technical team, including DevOps engineers. And currently, for the last year, I'm working at Amazing Hiring, and I'm more focused at helping companies to improve their sourcing strategies to find these technical talents, especially DevOps engineers. So as Jenna mentioned, it's one of the hardest roles to fill right now. So I'm really excited looking forward to our conversation. And I hope I will be able to share with you some insights on this market.
Awesome, thank you. And last but not least, Tomek, thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So hi, everyone. My name's Tomek. I'm a Chief Technology Officer at DevSkiller. I'm a Java developer by heart, so I'm from the software engineering background. However, as you all probably know, DevOps is not really a position. It's just like a mental model, I would say, or just like an attitude. So I, as probably every other developer in my team, have this DevOps attitude, and that's why I'm looking forward to this webinar. And for me, like DevOps is mostly about automation, so that's really close to my heart. And looking for the great people, not necessarily with the right skills, but with the right attitude and with like the passion to learn new stuff and to have this mental model of like doing things in the DevOps style is something that's really interesting for me.
All right. Thanks, guys. Again, thank you very much for joining us. We've got a lot to cover today, so why don't we just jump straight into our first question. For you, Jenna, obviously you've got a lot of experience in tech recruitment, particularly DevOps. So how extensive was your DevOps recruitment over the last 12 months? Would you say that the number of openings increased, decreased, or stayed around the same?
Yeah, so DevOps is really kind of my bread and butter. It's where I spend a lot of my recruiting time, and it's a lot of what I'm known for. If I'm reaching out to new customers, I'll tend to reach out to people that have DevOps roles open and say, hey, this is like something I really love to do. Like, let's talk and see if we can work together on it. I think it's definitely one of those things that's increased over time. Everybody right at the start of everything with Corona kind of backed off on their hiring and they shied away from headcount. And now we're seeing the impact of all of that headcount, plus all of the headcount they have for now, trying to fill all those roles at the same time in the midst of one of the strangest situations with people looking at jobs or changing jobs that we've had in a while, at least. So I think definitely seeing an increase in the amount of jobs, seeing an increase in the kind of specialty of jobs. I'm seeing a lot of like DevSecOps. I'm seeing a lot of automation experts. I'm seeing people that not only like DevOps attitude, but that also have these other specializations as we're starting to see it kind of more and more integrated into the process. And I think that we're really looking for people, like Tomek said, that have the right attitude and that have that kind of desire to look at problems and solve them and automate them and make them better for the rest of the engineering team. And more teams are seeing where that's a really valuable skill set to have, which is really exciting. When I started hiring DevOps, it was like, okay, we need one guy. He's going to sit over there. He's going to do that thing. And that's his day. And now it's very much more integrated with the team. So that's been a really cool kind of change to see take place.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting you mentioned the new roles that are being born out of DevOps as well. It's something we mentioned in our discussion last week, particularly DevSecOps. You know, these new positions that are becoming, you know, more apparent in the last 12 months. It's quite interesting. Yeah, Rolana, what about you? Do you see any trends in the DevOps market? Have you seen, for example, an increase in the number of searches for DevOps positions?
Yes, so I can definitely relate to what Janice said. So the number of roles, it is still increasing. And I think, you know, when pandemic happened, the companies, they had this challenge that they had to move, you know, and transform their businesses to digital really, really fast. And market, it just wasn't prepared for that. This is why we see the number of roles like opening. And as Janice said, there are like more narrow specializations which are opening in company structures. And we actually made the research on Amazing Hiring, and we checked the number of searches that were made by recruiters for DevOps field at the beginning of the year. And for today, like at the current moment, and the number of searches increased by 65%, which is still huge, as I think. So yeah, it is definitely still growing. So these DevOps engineers are in a huge demand right now.
Yeah, definitely. It's you could say it's exploded, I guess, in recent times, DevOps, certainly. Okay, I think this might be a good time to launch our first poll for those of you who are joining in. I guess I'll allow our panelists to vote as well. So I'm going to launch this poll. It's going to be a nice little segue into our next section of our discussion. So do you believe there is a DevOps talent scarcity? Yes, no, or maybe not yet. We're getting there. So if you guys can, seeing the votes come in, and it's pretty astounding, but I'll wait for everybody to respond. Okay, a couple more going. All right, I think that'll do. Okay, let's share the results. So do you believe there is a DevOps talent scarcity? 100%, overwhelming. I was not very surprised with that response. I was interested to see maybe there's some people out there who aren't quite, you know, on the bandwagon, let's say, but yeah, that's pretty overwhelming. So yeah, I think this is a nice position to segue into the next part of our discussion. So Tomek, would you say that there's a noticeable impact caused by the DevOps talent scarcity? How do you think the situation has changed over the last 12 months?
Well, basically everyone now goes into the cloud, and everyone wants to scale like crazy because we have Black Fridays, because we have like something not really that recent, which was the pandemic, and suddenly everyone went to work online, work from home, and this meant like trivial things like you suddenly have to scale up your VPN connections, or you have to have like better bandwidth to your office, whatever, or the number of orders, everything just exploded overnight basically, and you cannot you cannot really implement these changes without people with DevOps attitude, because the old way, the old school of doing stuff was essentially just like provisioning servers manually, doing a lot of stuff manually. And now, without having not even the mechanisms, but people who can like foresee things that can happen, this is all simply impossible. So you need these types of people, especially in the last I would say 12 months, because the business has changed significantly, and like everything around that. So I definitely see like scarcity, as our poll has shown in just a few seconds. But I also see that a lot of people are actually looking through this career because it seems compelling and it seems interesting, and you just have this amazing impact on your company from like two perspectives. First of all, because you're physically making changes to sometimes tens of thousands of servers, or you're making a configuration change that impacts like every single employee. So you really have this feeling of power. But secondly, you mentioned DevSecOps. There's also DevFinOps, probably mentioned in the last webinar. So you as a single person can save your company hundreds of thousands of dollars, but by just making tiny adjustments. And if you find the right person on the right position, this person will be expensive because there's scarcity and these people are actually in high demand, people with this kind of attitude. However, they can make a great impact simply because they made a few tweaks here and there, maybe just one line code change somewhere, and suddenly your cloud costs or your third-party services costs go down by like 5, 10, 20%. So definitely these are the kind of people who you should be looking for and who are extremely valuable to your company.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about optimization, I guess, DevOps at some point as well. I think that's the value that they really provide to technical teams. Yeah, thanks for that, Tomek. Obviously, that's the technical component of it. Maybe Jenna, you can elaborate on the recruitment side of this. Like, what are you seeing in terms of the talent scarcity, DevOps shortage? Like, is it apparent? Do you feel it like with your work day to day?
Oh yeah, I think there's probably not a week that goes by that I don't talk to a client who wants to open some new DevOps headcount and get some additional roles in that area. And a lot of times it's the engineering teams that are asking for them, as it's kind of becoming more recognized as something that can be really helpful and something that can support a larger engineering organization. A lot of people are saying, hey, we need this for our teams. Or like, I came from a team that had a really strong, DevOps culture and they ran really well. So like, let's bring that here. And I'm seeing it especially with smaller startups who for the longest time, I never heard like, we've got 10 people at our company, it's time to bring on somebody for DevOps, and would never hear that. And now it's like, okay, we need to think about this. We need to get in early. We need to make sure that we're building things out with best practices and that we're not kind of creating technical debt that we're going to have to deal with later. So just more recognition that there is that DevOps needs to be a part of engineering culture. And the more recognition there is that it's such an important role is creating scarcity for, I think, especially more senior people who have been doing it for a while. We're getting, like you mentioned now, where a lot more people are interested in DevOps, but it seems like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it was one of those things that you didn't really like go to school for DevOps for a while. You kind of just like fell into it. And so now we're seeing that there's a little bit more opportunity to really kind of learn and start your career in this area. So in more junior roles, there's kind of an expanding talent pool, but when you're looking for people who kind of have been there and done that, there's only so many to go around.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, we mentioned this last week as well, that education might have been one of the contributing factors to the scarcity situation, I guess, because there was a lack of, formal education for DevOps positions, certainly in the past anyway. Well, thanks guys very much for that. Rulana, many companies are trying to become more diverse with their workforce. So would you say it's more difficult to find female DevOps engineers? Are there many female DevOps engineers out there? Like, do they exist? What do you have to say?
Interesting question. So we've been discussing, the beginning of this webinar, how hard it is to find a really good DevOps professional because of the scarcity. So, to find a female DevOps professional is like an extremely hard challenge, I would say. So if we're talking about European market, there are around 9% of female professionals I'm talking about all kind of positions, like from junior to executive level. So it's 9% in the whole Europe. And what was really surprising to me is that France is leading in number of female DevOps engineers. So it is like the difference between the first and the second location is like France, they have 5 times more females than the UK, which is in the second place. I was really surprised because when I'm doing this market research, what I usually see with technical candidates that UK would be in the first place. And here we have France, and here we have such a big difference in the number of females. And if there's anyone among our viewers who knows actually, is there like a special place in the heart of French women for DevOps? That would be really interesting to know, because I'm curious what is happening.
Yeah,
So,
certainly.
it would be really, really challenging.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, definitely. Jana, I know that you're quite an advocate for diversity and inclusion and stuff like that. Maybe you can offer your insight in the US. I mean, I'm not looking for particular numbers or statistics, but do you have anything you could add to this point here?
Yeah, just sort of gut check from doing the searches. Yes, it is really hard to find, especially like I mentioned before on the more senior side, as we're becoming more aware of this, and there's more like women in STEM programs, and there's more emphasis on like moving women into those career paths. I think it's certainly getting a little bit better over time, which is good news. But if you're looking for those people that can come in, hit the ground running, save you 5, 10, 20% on your costs within their first 6 months there, those people are going to be few and far between if you're looking for candidates from underrepresented groups. Yeah,
certainly. Okay, yeah, we're chugging quite along. So I've got this next question here for you, Tomek. You obviously have the technical background, so you might be able to offer us some insight on this. What are the critical elements of the job package that companies should consider when recruiting DevOps engineers? Salary obviously is a big one, but maybe company culture, growth opportunities. What do you see, or what do you hear amongst your peers in the tech world?
We should get salary out of the picture, because that's kind of the obvious one, and like the rest of the like new speak that you can find in your job ad. I'd say that for a person with DevOps attitude, I'd say the flexibility of what they can do and what the company can offer in terms of like the technical aspects. So if you're the DevOps kind of person, I'm really like shying away from saying DevOps engineer, because we shouldn't call it this way, but the DevOps type of person, I would say. So if you're that type of person, and if you're going to a bank or a place where the infrastructure is very rigid and there's not much to change because everything is kind of sealed away and there is not much point in making any difference, then probably these types of people will suffer, because they cannot make the change. They cannot like automate stuff, because everything requires a written signature and an email going back and forth and so on and so forth. So if you're looking for DevOps people, then make sure you can offer them an environment where they can like spread their wings. So typically startups or smaller companies where they have freedom to make changes, like even as big as changing the cloud provider, or as like moving from one type of infrastructure to another, because they are fully capable of that. And these people, especially the talented ones, can do like amazing transitions and amazing changes to your underlying infrastructure without you even noticing. And that's great, because from the outside, it seems like they didn't make any difference, but they just saved you a ton of money, or they just sped up your application by 5%, which can mean an amazing growth in revenue or something without you even noticing. And that's how they should work. So if you're looking if I were a DevOps type of person and I were looking for a job, I would look for places where the company can give me a full freedom. They just give me the master password to everything. And of course, I'm a sane person, so I'm not going to destroy everything, and I will be like moving on with caution. But anyways, I will like go through every corner and try to see what can I optimize, what can I make faster in terms of the actual software and in terms of the processes. because maybe there are some processes in the company that can be automated, things where we can replace paper with email with website with script, and so on and so forth. These are like really tiny things that can add up. So this is the number one thing I would be looking for. Like, give me an opportunity to make a change and to look everywhere to search for that change, because I am that kind of a person. This is my hacker mentality, I would even say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and so many companies are looking to fill DevOps positions. So you've got to obviously offer something that's competitive, and, taking salary out of the equation, everybody's looking to get, good money, but those growth opportunities and opportunity to learn has to be pretty much close to the top of the list as well. So yeah, it's very interesting. Thanks, Tommy. All right, so we're kind of making a bit of a transition here in our discussion. We've covered the, let's say, trends and the talent shortage, but maybe we might have some tips and some insights how to overcome this talent shortage. So this next question is for you, Jenna. Have you got any sourcing techniques that have worked for you specifically for DevOps roles? Do you see a similar level of success between smaller companies which may not have as big of a budget, or is it kind of universal with how it goes?
Yeah, I think with DevOps and with a lot of roles, the thing that I always encourage recruiters to do is go and talk to the people who are doing the work and see what's interesting and what's exciting to them and how they talk about it. So just like the smallest example, if you're looking for people with containerization experience and you're searching for Kubernetes, well, a lot of times it gets abbreviated K8s. Little things like that, people will put it in different ways on their profiles. Okay, well, now it's opened up all of these profiles of people who maybe aren't optimizing their profile for recruiters, but are just kind of talking to each other about it, or going and seeing who's contributing to projects, who's writing articles in the space, like who's really excited about this, and then having compelling opportunities for them is going to be really important. I actually just helped to place a DevOps type person who came with 2 offers. One was from a very large company, really lucrative offer, but he would have been joining a team of about 50 other people doing that kind of work. The other was a smaller startup, didn't really have as much financial incentive to join that team, obviously, but he would be the first person with that kind of mindset and be able to build out best practices from the ground up. And even though they were pretty different on the offers, he went with the smaller startup because he wanted that freedom. So to Tomek's point, like that ability to be able to own large sections of the code base and be able to make those changes and have those changes be really taken seriously and appreciated for the change and the difference that they can make is so important. So I think when you're talking to DevOps people, once you source them and you find them, having really compelling messaging that says, this is why this is a unique situation for you, or this is why, I'm reaching out to you specifically, not just everybody who put DevOps anywhere on their profile and I blasted out a spam message, but like, here's the things that would really stand out from another person who does that kind of work. So always going back to the people who do the work and learning how they talk about it and learning what's important to them can really help you to get the people interested and engaged with your outreach and get them into your interview process. Yeah,
so would you say that personalization is part of it as well, I guess, with those people that you do reach out to, not just, like you said, sending a spammy message, but something that's like, this is why this is for you, this fits your bill. It's an interesting insight. Thank you. Okay, Rolana, you've got something interesting to offer here about certifications. I understand that they can play a role in sourcing for DevOps positions. So do you have any of your own secret sourcing tips that say some magic for how to find DevOps people?
Well, I tried to figure out some tips for our viewers that could be helpful. So yeah, what I see that more and more companies, they require these type of person to have some kind of certificates, even like it doesn't matter what kind of certification would that be. So many candidates, they have that. So I've made the research and I will mention like top 5 of them. There are more. You can check actually like the latest blog posts on amazing hiring websites. And I think that we will share that information anyway in the follow-up email, right? So yeah, you don't have to, write it down.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, so the first one, the most popular one would be AWS, like Certified Solution Architect. Like the difference is big, I would say like around 30 to 40% of like DevOps type of person, they have it. I'm just trying to tell it like Tomek told, like I'm not using DevOps professional anymore.
No, I'm okay with that. So
but I like this idea. Then you would have this Microsoft Certified Professional certification on the second place. Then there is Azure Fundamentals, AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner, and AWS Certified Developer. So yeah, that would be top 5. And it can be helpful for you to identify if that's the right fit for your role, if they have some of these certifications.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we don't want to narrow it down too much, but it definitely does. It definitely does help for sure. And as DevOps continues to grow, these certifications are becoming more and more important. Our last panel, our head of cloud infrastructure, actually, he mentioned the importance of staying up to date with the certifications pertaining to the particular clouds and stuff like that. So it is interesting. Okay, well, thanks very much, guys. I am going to launch one last poll for everybody. Now, I understand that, maybe I didn't stop sharing the last one. That's okay. Yeah, I understand everyone here is not with a recruitment background or particularly HR, but just out of curiosity, we'll launch this poll here. So how long does it take for you to typically fill a DevOps position? Less than 1 month, 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 months or more? Like we understand, obviously it's difficult to find these people or these individuals, so it will be pretty interesting. And I can see some votes coming through. Give it a few more seconds and I'll share that with you. Okay, 1 or 2 more. Alrighty, so let's share the results. So we have a slight winner. So how long does it take for you to typically fill a DevOps position? 1 to 3 months with 48% and 3 to 6 months with 44%. Interestingly, we actually had some people vote for less than 1 month at 4% and 6 months or more. So, but right around that 1 to 6 months range, let's say. But it is interesting because obviously it's such an in-demand skill that I know that a lot of you are struggling to find these individuals. So. All right, so I might move over to our next part. So Tomek, this next question is for you. Do you think the recruitment process for DevOps people should differ for junior and senior positions? If yes, how so?
Yes, and actually, quite surprisingly, I believe it should be different in a way that you would probably not anticipate. So for juniors, I would actually focus on technical stuff. So if there is a junior DevOps engineer, let's call it this way, so there's a person who is just starting their DevOps career, I would just like go through CV and find like anything that this particular person knows. So either it's a particular cloud or a particular tool, and then just like drill down to this particular thing and see how this junior how well this junior type of person can handle this particular knowledge, because that's pretty much the only thing he or she knows, or just a few things. So just make sure these types of things are well understood by that person. However, when you're looking for a senior type of person, probably a few years ago, I would say that you should ask about everything, or you should just like go through the CV and randomly choose technologies and make sure that the he or she is not lying. But these days, I'd rather say that like the senior type of person, or it applies to DevOps, software engineers, security engineers, whatever, I'd expect these types of people to actually be capable of learning pretty much everything. So I'm looking for people who are who find it easy to learn new technologies and who are eager and anxious to work with new technologies. So if I ask that kind of person, like, do you know, I don't know, Terraform or Helm or whatever, these are like basic stuff, but anyway, and they don't know them, then that that's not a shame, but I'd expect these people to like know these technologies relatively well within like few days. So they are capable of like going through the docs and at least understanding what they're doing. I would even do an experiment if you have a little bit more time and giving such a senior person a new technology that's like completely new, alien, and very exotic, and asking that person to at least give me a brief explanation what this technology is, having all the help in the world, so Google, documentation, whatever. And if I see that it's a person who sees the name Helm for the first time in their life, and after 10 minutes, they can explain more or less what it does, and I see that they understand what it does, what are the use cases, and where can they use them, and when it makes no sense, that is the kind of person I'm looking for, not the person who exactly knows what Helm is because he or she worked with Helm for 7 years and that's the tool of the choice, and they'd use Helm for every single project and every single thing. That's actually a sign of someone not being a senior if you're like know one particular tool and you are such a professional in that tool that you would use it absolutely everywhere. That's definitely not the kind of attitude I would expect from, especially from a DevOps person. Quite the opposite. If there's something new on the market, I'm not jumping straight away into it. However, I am capable of learning that technology and finding the strengths and weaknesses of that technology relatively fast. If coming back to the junior position, if you're a junior, then you didn't really have the opportunity to have contact with so many technologies, but you probably know a few well. So at least make sure that this person knows these few technologies really well, and then you will sort of understand if he or she is capable of like moving on with other stuff. So the more senior you get, the less technical it should be, and the more you focus on the abilities to learn new stuff. I wonder if you agree with me, actually.
Well, I actually just have one follow-up question there about the junior aspect of that. If you could list maybe some of that, you said they have some knowledge of some basic technologies. Is there any that comes to your mind when you say basic technologies for junior DevOps roles?
If you are looking for like a primer, what you should learn as the first thing, if you want to become a DevOps engineer, let's stick to this name. Don't really know, but you should definitely know at least one cloud and be able to deploy code to at least one cloud. That's kind of the level 0. Mm-hmm. So any language, any cloud, but if you are given a task of deploying any application into any cloud, then you should be capable of doing so. And this is actually fairly basic. You have like tons of different solutions for that. So just be sure you can deploy a hello world web application on any cloud using any technology, and I'd say that's a good start.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I wanted to sort of point this towards you, Jenna. Do you implement different techniques for junior and senior DevOps candidates? Do you notice maybe that junior candidates might possess particular skills, like Tomek alluded to, a basic set of skills? Like what do you do? Do you differentiate between the two with your approach?
Yeah, I think you really.
Whoa. Okay. I think we lost Jenna for a moment there. It's all right. We'll give her a moment. Try to get back online.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll give her a second to get back online. Here she is. We lost you for a second, and you're just muted at the moment, Jenna.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
You really want to make sure that people have those strong foundations and those strong basics, that they have familiarity with CI/CD, that they're familiar with, as you said, at least one cloud provider, and that they can sort of speak to the benefits and the pros and cons of using different services. I think even in junior candidates, what you don't want is somebody who is like, I always use Google Cloud, no matter what, always, this is what I do, end of story. You want people that are able to think about, well, this would be a good trade-off for this, or in this situation, this might be really interesting to use. And that is kind of a skill set that goes from a junior level all the way up to a very senior level. I think one of the roles that I'm working on right now is actually for a more junior DevOps role. And we have a technology that we have created, an open source technology. And one of the interview questions for the onsite is that we ask people to get familiar with it and be able to write a rule in that language, knowing that it's one that most people aren't familiar with before they jump into our process. And we give them all the help in the world, all the documentation, everything is there, but we really want to see, like, if we give somebody something new, what is their process to understanding it and to being able to take action in it in a relatively short amount of time, and, you know, the day or two turnaround that we schedule their interview. And I think that's really something that can be very telling for people, is knowing, hey, you know, I'm going to have to learn something brand new. This is how I'm going to go about it. And that is, I think, a little bit more important, especially for people in the DevOps space, than just, you know, I'm a Python developer, I do Python, I do this all the time. Like, having a little bit more of a varied skill set, and that openness to learning new technologies as they come out, and being excited about it. One of my favorite questions to ask people in this space is, tell me a new technology you haven't gotten to play with that you want to. Or how have you gotten to use this, like, in your personal life? A lot of times they've got everything automated down to, like, their sock drawer. Like, it's pretty cool to see, even if they're not able to do it in their job now, or maybe if someone is transitioning into DevOps and this is a little bit different area for them, you can kind of look at their behavior in their personal life, in their hobbies, in their coding, in their open source contributions, and see sort of, do they have that good mindset, and do they think about things in that way? And you can use that to be really telling, even if that specific, like, check the box of this person knows AWS check isn't there yet.
Just a few two comments from me, if I may. So first of all, I really like the fact that you're asking candidates to do something in a new framework that they probably don't know. That's a great attitude. Actually, that's like completely the opposite to the way we used to recruit people, and which was wrong, by the way, where you are given a whiteboard, or you're given a computer with no access to the internet, and you ask the person to code. That's not the way we work. So why are we checking that? And actually, one of the most insightful things, and the things that are giving me the biggest insight, is how people are using Google or Stack Overflow. How are they browsing the source code? What are they looking at? What kind of mistakes are they making, and how are they rolling back from that mistakes? How are they reading the error messages? These are the type of things that give me the biggest insight into a candidate. So that's one thing. And regarding your favorite question, I can add another one to your playbook. What is your favorite technology, and what you hate the most about it? Because I can't imagine anyone working, like, professionally with technology and not having things they hate about it. And if they don't, it means that they are just religiously using this particular cloud or this particular framework, and they have no idea what are the cons of that technology.
I love that. I'm going to add that today.
It's really interesting. I think you've kind of alluded to it a little bit in your last answer, but specifically technical skills. Like, do you have a method for verifying technical skills of DevOps candidates? Does it also differ for junior and senior? Like, is the same approach again? Because it's an interesting topic that we're on right now.
For who?
Oh, it's Jenna. Sorry, apologies, Jenna. That one's for you. Yes, Jenna. Yeah, for your approach. Like, do you have a particular approach for verifying technical skills? Is it different again for junior and senior?
With junior, it's more like ability to learn technical skills. I think with senior, there are some things that I would like them to be able to demonstrate that they've done. I always like to have questions based on behavior and questions based on the things that people have done before. I think it was like a Dr. Phil quote or something, that past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And knowing, like, hey, you know, I actually came in and I noticed that this and this and this could be automated, and I did this, and I saved the company this much money because I put this into place, and I was the person who, like, found that and really implemented it and took the initiative to grow it, is something that can be really telling. If I'm going between, you know, three people that all have a great AWS certification, but one of them tells me that they took the time to really see how they could apply that, sorry, that's my cat, to the company, and how they were able to kind of make a real world difference with it, that's going to be something important. So when I'm looking at technical skills and I'm verifying technical skills, I'm not an engineer, but I can learn enough to know, hey, this person is really kind of, you know, taking the time to, hi,
He's joined, he or she?
He has a lot of feelings about DevOps.
Okay, he does, yeah. He's got a lot of thoughts on this one.
But that you can really kind of take that opportunity to learn about not only what they know on like a theoretical level or what they think is the right answer they should give in an interview, but what they've actually done in the past. And that's kind of the way that I like to approach technical questions.
No, it's very interesting. Yeah, thank you very much, Janet, and Tomic as well. That you've offered some interesting insight there. We've actually got a couple more questions before we go to Q&A. And again, guys, for those of you who are watching, if you've got any questions for our panelists, add them in here. We'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can. But I've got 2 questions left, and I guess I'll open this one up for all of you. They're both pretty open-ended questions, so you can go with them where you like. Have you witnessed a change in the requirements for DevOps roles over the last 12 months? Are companies demanding greater hard or soft skills, or is it the right combination of both? Jenna, you're unmuted. Maybe we can start with you and move over to, or Rolana, whoever, I don't mind, wants to jump onto it.
Yeah, I think we're really looking for kind of more well-rounded engineers and engineers that can be a part of the engineering community within the organization now. Like I said, it was very much like you go in that corner, that's where you do your thing. And there wasn't really a need for those kind of cross-collaborative skills as much. And now that we're kind of putting DevOps into every part of the engineering stack, we need people that can come in and get buy-in, people that can convince people that this is, you know, an important thing for them to be a part of, people that can really present and get other people on board with their ideas. And that's something that is kind of a newer skill set that I feel like we're looking at in the DevOps world, and something that is really important to have and kind of hard to interview for, right? As opposed to like, does this person know Azure? Cool, yes, no, but are they a little bit, you know, can they create a compelling case for something that they want to rechange within the organization? Things like that are a little bit more difficult. And so it's actually becoming a more challenging search, I think, now that it's not just hard skills, it's also, can you play nicely with the team? Can you help the organization in these ways? Adding on to all of that can definitely create kind of a more interesting, but also a much more difficult search.
Sure. Yeah. Rolana, have you got anything to add?
I can actually, I agree with Jenna. So I see the same, the companies, they are more looking for a balance between hard and soft skills. And sometimes it's even more about soft skills. So all that Jenna mentioned. And regarding, you know, as we've been talking about the interview and what you could ask these people, I really love the question about the failures. So, you know, there might happen that you did something wrong and everything just stopped working. So, you know, the way how these people, they would deal with that situations, it can tell you, you know, like it can tell you much about this person. So I really encourage recruiters to ask about that because, you know, failures is like a good experience. It's not something bad. It means that they already been through that. So they, you know how to deal it if something like that would happen in your company. And you know that he has, you know, skills that is required to deal with the certain situations in the proper way, because it can be really, really like serious issues for the company. I even know that there was a case when I think like this person, he was like his first or second months in the new role, and where like the product, it just failed because of him, and he thought that he would be fired, but he actually dealt pretty well with that. So, you know, anything could happen.
Yeah, thanks. I guess it's pretty common, you know, you've got to be able to deal with, it's not about how you get knocked down, it's how you get back up, I guess is the expression, right? So
yeah. And it's easy to tell, you know, about your success stories. It's easy for everyone, but about failures, it's different.
For sure. Tomic, do you have anything you'd like to add here?
Regarding the failures, if I may add, there is actually a very strong, I wouldn't say community, but a very strong movement toward postmortems. So essentially just writing down why we failed and why did it happen. And they should be, and that's kind of almost a buzzword, blameless, which means that the purpose of writing a postmortem after a failure or an outage is not to find the person responsible and fire that person, but at least to realize why was it possible that a single person caused an outage. because probably we don't have a process in place, or probably there's something not automated enough. And that's also a role of DevOps community. How can we make sure in the future that things are automated so that a human error does not cause a failure? And also, I totally agree that the failures that you caused and how you dealt with them, and the way you manage to prevent such failures in the future, because that's the biggest lesson to be learned. This tells a lot about a candidate. So yeah, I made a mistake. I dropped a database, or I turned off load balancer, and no one could connect to our website. Okay, I screwed up. But then I put this extra process in place. I created this automated test. I created this alert that within 20 seconds tells me that something went wrong. And this is the most interesting story, that you managed to prevent something in the future. You learned from your mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. I think retrospectives, like you said, is a really positive thing to do in terms of learning from mistakes, not to repeat them. So. All right, we got one last question before we get to our Q&A, and I might start it with you, Rulana, this time. So reskilling is a buzzword, I guess, in HR communities and recruitment communities at the moment. So have you noticed a change in job specifications for DevOps positions? Do you think companies are more willing to reskill candidates into DevOps positions who may not necessarily have the complete required skill set right now, meaning they may have some skills, but they don't quite have all the skills that are needed for a DevOps position? So what would you say?
Well, I would say that first of all, company would try, to find a perfect fit. That would be their first step. But when they understand, when they explore the market, they face all these struggles. This is the moment when they are ready to explore other opportunities. Like in most of the cases, it happens like that. And then they are ready to look for internal candidates that they could promote to these roles, or maybe to hire someone which is less experienced, but they can invest in the training. As and Tomek and Jana mentioned before, these people, they can really save your money. And in our poll, someone answered that they were looking for a DevOps engineer 6 months and more. So you can imagine that how bad is this for your business. So of course they would try to explore some different opportunities. And I think one of the scenarios is to relocate these people from other countries that have been really popular. And the difficulty with that is not that, it's hard to find the right person, or it's hard to relocate them, even if we're living in the pandemic. It's quite easy to make a work visa. But the challenge is that you have to prove, there are certain local requirements. You have to prove that you wasn't able to find this person on the local market. And there was a case with some company. It wasn't from Europe originally, but they opened their office in Europe, and they wanted to relocate person from their local country. And to make it easier for them, they just added to their job requirement that they need the knowledge of their local language, like advanced knowledge of their local language. So sometimes you might think out of the box, and you would come up with some creative solutions of problems. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. A life hack for someone.
Life hacks. Yeah, definitely. Jenna, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think one thing that Rulana touched on is being able to move people within the organization and reskilling folks that you already have. One company that I worked with, everybody started in this sort of basic engineering role, and then people grew into all of these different departments and roles within the organization. And it really created a lot of loyalty with these people, because they were growing and they were learning, and they were getting to kind of fulfill their career interests within the org. So they had a very long retention time compared to most companies. And they also had some people that were really skilled at different technologies and how they related specifically to the organization and the organization's goals, because they had kind of trained these people up. So I think that there's also a lot of interest now that we're talking about this more, that people might be interested in going to that place and being able to keep good employees on by giving them new opportunities, as opposed to having to go somewhere else to become the next thing that they want to be, can be really useful and really important.
Yeah, it definitely plays a part in this entire notion of growth opportunities for the candidate in the first place, before they even take the job, knowing that they're going to go to a company where they don't only have the chance to work in the current technology or current, role that they're in, but also potentially branch off and grow within. I think it's a trend that we're seeing more and more within organizations for sure. So Tomek, if you've got anything to add, please.
No, 100% agree. If you have a developer who's sad because they can no longer stand just doing coding, but they have some like kind of clicky attitude into doing more infrastructure stuff, then definitely go with it. It's so much cheaper to just reskill someone from your company rather than looking for a talent on the market. And if you cannot fill a DevOps position, then just find one internally and then fill the missing software developer or QA or whatever position, because it may be easier and cheaper.
Yeah. It's all about the money, I guess, at a certain point. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all of our questions for today. But we do have a couple of questions in the Q&A, and I've actually got a couple more questions that I'd sort of put to the side to see how we're doing for time. So, I'll open this question up. Probably Tomek and Jenna. I guess you guys might be interested in answering this one. So, in your experience, we're talking about this reskilling or upskilling from different positions. So, what roles are the easiest to transition into DevOps positions now? Meaning the current position that someone's in, what would be the logical step, like side step, let's say, into DevOps? Maybe Tomek, you can take it.
So very quickly. So software engineer, especially a little bit more low level software engineer. So writing in C, C++ or Go. Go is actually considered a DevOps language anyway. So software engineers, because they have this automation attitude, and maybe also QA engineers, because the like modern quality assurance engineers are automating like scripts already, so it shouldn't be a big difference for them, and they already need to be familiar with APIs and integrating a lot of stuff. So these two positions I would consider the most compelling when it comes to reskilling to DevOps.
Yeah, Jenna, anything to add, or is
No, that's a great answer. Those are the people I would go after.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought so. I mean, we've kind of covered this, I guess, in a sense with reskilling, but I'll ask this one for you, Jenna, and Rolana, feel free to jump in as well. But do you believe the reskilling could be an approach to dealing with the talent shortage? We talked about the talent shortage at the beginning. So is reskilling an option for companies who can't find DevOps positions, or is it, what are the advantages and disadvantages that you see there?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely an option and an advantage. The thing is that you do need somebody in your organization that has a very strong DevOps mindset to mentor that person. You can't just go to an engineer and be like, you're DevOps now, and then just assign them things and let them go wild with it. I think if you have at least one or two really kind of strong people within the organization that they can look up to, that they can start to work with, that they can get assigned projects on, that can be really good. And all of the research has shown that reskilling is something that employees love. They feel like they want to stay with their companies longer. They feel like they're progressing in their careers. And it helps with retention rates. Finding a new person to fill a role, it costs roughly 1 year's salary of a person in that role. And that's just the general average. Yeah. So if you can save yourself a whole year of salary by, taking 3 months for someone to maybe step back from their work and learn a new skill set, then from a monetary perspective, it's there. But you're also kind of creating this good feeling within that employee that they feel like they can continue to learn and grow and not have to go somewhere else. So not only are you sparing yourself finding a new DevOps person, but you are also kind of sparing yourself having to find 2 new people. And then at the same time, you might move someone into those harder to fill roles and then have a more general back-end role or something that someone needs to fill. That's going to be a little bit easier search, like we mentioned before.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that point about an entire year's salary for filling the position. It's why I guess it's becoming so appealing for companies to consider reskilling as an option, because the saving in cost is like you said, it can be huge. So, and that's just for one position. You're at a bigger company and you're advertising for multiple positions, it gets even worse. So, yeah, thank you, Rolana. I guess do you have anything to add there, or?
Well, I think Jenna covered pretty much everything. So I agree with her. That's a really good opportunity and an option considering current market. It's just that as Jana said before, you have to have the right expectations that it's not like this person will come and do everything for you. And I think it's really important to have, to prepare a good onboarding plan, because it's a stress for employee, even if he is like, really motivated, but there is always, I don't know, like the opportunity that they can fail, especially when you don't have a really experienced colleague right behind you. So yeah, you have to onboard them really accurately. This is what I think.
Yeah, sure. All right, we got one last question. I think, Jenna, this one's probably best for you. So how are DevOps recruitment processes structured at your organization? Do you advertise all of your open positions?
So I primarily work with companies that are a little bit smaller. And so we generally tend to put our positions as like junior and senior. And one of the things that we found is that people are more or less likely to self-select into applying for roles, depending on if they feel like they meet the qualifications. There's this study that's been around forever that says that men will apply if they meet 30% of the qualifications. Women will only apply if they meet 90%. So especially if you're looking for people from those under-recruited groups, being able to have a little bit of differentiation and saying, this role or these qualifications or these qualifications can really help to kind of broaden your pipeline a little bit and get some variety in the folks that you have applying. I've also seen places that they just have like DevOps and then people just apply to the role. So that can work as well. But if you can get a little bit more granular with it, you can definitely attract some talent that might otherwise not self-select into your process.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much. And thanks to all three of you for, I think, really interesting insights today. I think we've gotten through all of our questions. So yeah, I'd like to just one last time, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Tomek. Thank you, Rolana. Thank you, Jenna. Really appreciate the insights. A couple of quick things, like I mentioned at the beginning, we will be sharing this recording with you guys next week, and there'll also be some material like Rolana alluded to. And I'm also going to send a quick feedback form. So if you guys have any feedback or if you have some suggestions for our future discussions or future webinars, feel free to suggest them and we'll do our best to get them on for our next discussion. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Yeah, hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.